So the Aces, Becky Hammon, gave her first press conference after being given her 2-game suspension, and she gave a masterclass. Kudos to the Aces PR team who prepared her for this press conference. I mean, really, chef's kiss. To be clear, this was not Aces owner Mark Davis's dad, Al Davis's press conference after he fired Lane Kiffin. Now, if you don't remember that one where he used an overhead projector from his 5th grade class, it looked like, to outline why he had fired Kiffin and pointed out how Lane was pouting as the Raiders took Jamarcus Russell in the draft and how Russell was going to be a great QB one day. No, this press conference was more like the Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti when he spoke to the press after Ray Rice's domestic violence suspension and after he got cut from the Ravens. He just exuded confidence no matter what during that press conference, like he had it all covered, shining those smiley teeth of his, those white pearls. So that's what Hammon came across today, is just totally confident and in control. Now, I am going to break down each question and read between the lines and point out the repeated messaging that Hammon and the Aces were giving in this press conference. So here we go. But before we start, if you like my content, please like and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's get into it. So the opening statement by Hammon, it was, we did nothing wrong. My relationship with Hamby was good. Disappointed, but now we move on. Yes, the old Belichick on to Cincinnati. As well, I'll take questions on this as long as I want until I want to cut it off and talk about basketball. Take a listen.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everybody, this morning. Appreciate you getting up early and jumping on this call. I guess my statement would just be to start with the WNBA investigation. And I would just echo the sentiments of the statement that the Aces put out the other day. I don't recall my relationship with Hamby being anything but on the up and up. And I'm just obviously, along with the organization and everything, disappointed with the findings. But, we're looking forward to kind of putting the whole thing behind us and playing good basketball. So I will answer a few questions on the topic. And then at some point, I'll move on and we'll talk about basketball.
Hammon uses the first question to humanize herself and talks about how it's impacted her and her family, especially as she did nothing wrong, which she reiterates, and then insinuates her team is upset as well, as they know she did nothing wrong. But hey, this comes with the job of being a head coach. Take a listen.
I did want to ask in terms of how you I guess personally have dealt with this, if you could sort of talk about that, and if you've talked to your team about the whole investigation or their thoughts about it, or if you could share that with us.
Yeah, well, obviously it's not a fun situation at all. It's never have to have your name kind of be associated with something like that, which is not who you are as a person. It's not how I operate. On the other hand, I did talk to my team. They were great. I have to say they've been very professional throughout this whole process. Obviously, I have the support of my organization and my team and my family, but it's never a good feeling to have to, call home and say, leave the TV off for the kids. You always want to protect the people that are closest to me, but this is part of the gig, and so obviously the people that are closest to me, it affects the most. My girls are close with me. So, they've had certain feelings about it, but those are for them to share and not myself.
Now, the second question comes from Howard Megdadal, and he gives her a layup question. Essentially, do you stick by the Aces statement? And Hammon, of course, outlines that yes, and then starts to paint a picture that this turned into an issue once Hamby was traded and no complaints were made by any players, and that this issue only developed with Hamby after the trade, which was totally business, and that, hey, it might have been, if I had one downfall, I'm such a people person or players coach, that maybe that was my downfall because my strength is how good I get along with my players, i.e. it's a typical job interview thing. Hey, what's your weakness? Well, of course, my weakness, I work too hard and I care too much. So here we go. Take a listen to this one.
That you guys hold yourselves to the highest professional standards, and the facts we presented were consistent with these standards. I'm wondering whether you believe anything that you said or did in conjunction with Dearica Hamby fell short of those standards in your view.
No, I don't. I don't think they fell short. That's not how I recall the conversation going. And there wasn't one player complaint in the previous 6 months. Nikki Fargas can attest to that. Not one person in her office complaining. There's not one point or statement that was reported to Nikki of anything but quite honestly compliments and how they liked me being their coach. So that's who I am, and anybody that knows me knows how I operate. And so it's unfortunate, that this is trades and stuff are part of the business. They're not fun phone calls for me. Especially, sometimes your greatest strength can be a great weakness. My greatest strength is probably my relationships with my players. So we're a close-knit group. And I know they'll go to fight on the court or in any way. We're a family atmosphere, and that's who we are.
Now, Howard comes back with a follow-up asking her if she has any regrets in the handling of it. And this is an easy out Hammond could take. She could say, I wish we would have communicated better or something like that. But no, she digs in. She's the most, she goes after Hamby the most in this question right here, saying she treated her well and Hamby knows what was said. And Hamby's really just a disgruntled player, and Hammond's the target because, she was the one that gave her she was the bearer of the bad news, which comes with her job.
So no regrets and nothing you do different as it relates to Dearica, in other words.
I handled Dearica with care from day one when she told me, and she knows that. And like I said, once I make the phone call that the decision's been made to move her, that's when everything kind of fell apart.
Now, in this question, she starts to outline or discredit the investigation a little bit, pointing out that none of her current players were interviewed. Now, she'll go after this a little bit more later on in the press conference. She has more on this. You wait.
Hi, Coach. Good morning.
Hi there.
Carter, about the investigation, the league said that it interviewed 33 people and reviewed numerous text, emails, and other documents. Do you know any of the details of that investigation, and did it include any Las Vegas Aces players?
I don't know the details, but I know they did not interview, according to my knowledge, they didn't interview Asia Wilson, they didn't interview Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, not anybody that was on last year's roster. No, they did not interview any of them.
Now, this next question is pretty good, as the reporter tries to get her on the record documenting that there's no text or email trail. Hammond says there is no text or email trail, that nothing was done. And oh, by the way, if you see any fake text, or if you see any texts that show me or anybody in the Aces organization being fake, well, don't worry about it, because I've recently found out that you can fake a text, and if you see these, that's what you're seeing. Here we go.
Hey, Becky, good morning. Regarding this investigation, there's been a lot of conversations about that there were text messages and there's proof that Dearica was mistreated. And I wondered, at any point, have you had conversations within the Aces organizations about let's post some screenshots of text messages on social media to prove that, we were on the up and up, as you said?
Well, those are completely false. I never had one bad text between me and Dearica Hamby. Completely false. Or email. First of all, I don't email my players. I talk to them directly. But we do exchange texts, and, anything that is less than the up and up, I can tell you is adamantly false and not true from any person in this organization. It's not how we do business. It's not who we are. But I did learn recently that people can screenshot or I don't know what, set up a conversation. They can have their friend text them certain things and frame it and put Coach Hammon or whoever or Nikki Fargas on the top of the screen and just kind of doctor things the way they want to doctor. That's the world we live in. But every one of those accusations are vehemently false.
This question is asking what it means to have the support of the organization, and again gives her a chance to reinforce that it was just business and that her players support her and she can take the hit. She has a strong chin, and don't worry, everyone on my team knows I did nothing wrong.
Yeah, Becky, the statement the Aces put out yesterday, full support of you. What did that mean to you?
It means everything. You know, when you're part of an organization that has invested into you personally, you know, I'm talking about just me, and has the belief in you. Of course, you never want there to be bumps in the road or any kind of issues. You don't want that for your organization. So I think the thing with Hamby, to me, I mean, for me, it was just business. But to have Mark Davis, Nikki Fargas behind you, and more importantly, my girls, my team, support me completely. And that's all I need to keep it moving. And, you know, like I said, I'll take my little lump on the chin and keep it moving. We're bigger than this. We're that, like I said, it's just not who the Aces are. It's not who I am. It's not who the Aces organization is. So yeah, everybody's kind of disappointed in the situation, but at the end of the day, we know who we are, and so we go to sleep every night in that truth.
This reporter gets a follow-up, and it gives Hamby another chance to say, he asked about if the pregnancy was supported, and that gives her a chance to say, yes, you know, we support pregnancy, and it was really business again. 3 players versus 1. I'm being accused because I'm the one that gave her the bad news that she was traded. Hamby was upset and felt betrayed, which again is probably just because I'm such a good people person or players coach that, you know, she would feel betrayed that we did this to her.
Obviously, pregnancy in the workplace is a big topic, and I'm sure there'll be some who will use this as an example of why that's still a problem. What would you say?
It wasn't a problem, and it never was why we made the decision to move Hamby. We made the decision to move Hamby because we could get 3 bodies in for her 1 contract, and we wanted to get 3 more people in. I think it's very evident who we signed on why we made the move. But it was never an issue, and it was never the reason she was traded. It just wasn't. It came down to math and business. That's all it was. Nothing personal. Hamby, I mean, like I said, I had a great relationship with Hamby the whole time.
Thank you.
Which is why she probably felt the way she did. You know, it feels like a betrayal, but like I said, it's a crappy part of my job, but somebody's got to be the bearer of bad news.
Now, trust me, this video is easy from the cheap seat. So I admit I'm not there. I'm not on the spot, but Ben, you need to ask a follow-up question. Take a look.
Just following up on some of the questions earlier, did the league ever specify to you what part of the respect in the workplace policy they said you violated? You know, that's not a public document, so I was just curious if they specifically, if you could share what specifically they said you violated in it.
Me asking about her pregnancy and a private conversation that I was having with Dearica. That's what they said.
All right, Ben, thank you. We'll turn to
Ben, ask the question. Did you order the code red? That's the question that needs to be asked. What was the private conversation? And did this include asking Hamby if her pregnancy was planned or if she was taking precautions? And if she knew that she was pregnant when she signed the contract extension? Okay, again, it's easy from the cheap seats, but the next reporter, Chantel, gets us back on track where she asks or tries to get Hammon to go on the record regarding how she sort of speculated you could fake text, and she just wants her on the record. Are you saying that Hamby faked the text messages or reported text messages? And then when Hammon sort of clarifies, hey, that hasn't been alleged, then she goes back to the Instagram statement and wants her to comment on those. But again, Hammon just goes back. She plays it well, Hammon, and just goes back to the, we had a tough conversation with Hamby, and that's okay if she took the conversation the wrong way. Me giving tough love and telling her we're trading her. It's okay if she took that the wrong way and thought I was going after her over her pregnancy. Here we go.
Hello from the New York Times. I'm responding to what you said earlier about kind of the fake screenshots and doctoring texts. Are you saying that you believe Dearica made up her accusations?
I'm saying I don't believe anybody in our organization sent any nasty texts to Dearica Hamby.
And why do you think that she was so, because I'm thinking about her Instagram post in January. Did you see
I actually haven't seen that Dearica said she received nasty texts from us. I haven't seen that. I think that's completely fabricated by somebody on the outside that doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Okay. As far as what she said people said to her, her Instagram post was very specific about a lot of different comments, though she didn't name anybody in particular. Do you believe that any of that happened? Do you know if anyone's saying anything negative to Dearica about her pregnancy?
No, I don't believe that happened. Although, like I said, when you're dealing with a really tough conversation, I think things can get twisted real quick, but I don't think there was like any cursing or anything derogatory. That's my opinion. Obviously she has a different opinion and she's allowed to have that opinion. But that's not how I saw things go down with my conversation or anybody else's.
Now, the next question gives her a chance to discredit the investigation and take a look. I'm going to speak after this one as it is great.
Hi, Becky. Just going off something you said earlier, you mentioned that no one on the current roster had been interviewed in the investigation. Were you told who was interviewed or who was talked to, or how did you know that?
I know that because none of the girls told me they were interviewed or even asked to be interviewed. I think the only player that I know of that they interviewed was Elizabeth Cambage. After that, nobody on that current roster that I know of was interviewed. And like I said, Asia Wilson, all those I know for sure were not interviewed.
Becky had that one in her back pocket. Again, she discredits the investigation, saying none of her current players were interviewed, and then she throws in delightfully that the only player I'm aware of that's been interviewed is Liz Cambage. That player, well, she doesn't say this, but the player that I didn't re-sign when I took over as coach, who came out and, was disgruntled in the press that I make 3 times as much as the players make. Yeah, that was the only person they bothered to interview was that ex-player that hated me. This whole investigation was just a parade of disgruntled players that didn't like the business of me being coach and cutting them and making the best Aces team possible. And then in the next question, she goes on to how, this shows that we're all pulling together as an organization. When we're being attacked unfairly, we are all coming together. It shows how strong the foundation of the organization is and how we're not falling apart, that we're pulling together.
Good morning, Coach Hammond. Just from your standpoint, with everything going on with the investigation and the ruling that was handed down, how do you able to process that mentally and be able to make sure that your team remains focused and not pay attention to what's going on outside of them as they prepare for the upcoming season?
Well, for me, I mean, this is a situation where I stand by who we are, what we are, which is a family around here. And so it's really, I use the analogy of being a parent with them. But you band together in hard times, and you can either let things be a distraction or tear you apart, or you can make choices to come together. And me and the group and the organization have made choices to intentionally come together. And we can always turn something that maybe is perceived as negative or whatever it might be into something positive. So we'll use it to be better on the court. And at the end of the day, that's the kind of competitors and that's the kind of people I have in that locker room.
To have the support of, like you said, the organization from Mark Davis to Nikki Fargas on down, how much does that help you be able to adjust to, obviously, with the punishment that came down, and be able to, when your 2-game suspension is up, you're able to focus on the season and not have to worry about what's already transpired?
Well, I look forward to just getting off this phone call with y'all and moving on and playing some basketball. But their support, obviously, when you have cracks in your foundation, it comes out eventually. And I think the fact that our foundation is so solid within the organization, from the support of, I would say, kind of the 4 leadership pillars of an organization, that when the storm comes and things start to get hectic and look like they're a little bit, you stay steadfast, you stay firm in who you are and in the truth. And you go on that and you build on that. And we were built for tough times. This team was built for tough times. And yeah, this is an off-board thing. But the resiliency, the toughness is still always there in any circumstance. And it translates. Things that we learn in basketball translates to real life.
Now, this reporter, Lindsay, gets close, but does not ask the question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Coach. I just want to clarify something from before. You said that you were told the suspension was just because you asked about the pregnancy in a conversation with Dearica. And are you saying that you did ask about the pregnancy?
I did ask about the pregnancy. That is true.
Okay. And they're saying that merely asking was a violation of the rules.
I guess you'd have to ask for their interpretation. But yeah, that's what, from my understanding, was my misstep, if you will.
Ask the question. Like McEnroe, answer the question, jerk. Ask the question. Did you ask Hamby if she was taking precautions? And did you ask if she knew she was pregnant when she signed the contract extension? That's the question that needs to be asked. But she didn't, and her follow-up allows Hammon to emphasize that she had a tough conversation with Hamby, but it was business and outlining the tough business of basketball. And she's sorry that Hamby was hurt by this conversation, as she never wants to hurt anyone. And it's brilliant by Hammon. I mean, that's perfect, because you don't want to be seen like you're victim blaming. This again, we didn't do anything wrong, and I'm sorry that she was hurt by the business basketball conversation we had.
Gotcha. And obviously, WNBA is a progressive league with a lot of progressive fans. What would your message be to those fans who might be a little conflicted or, having a hard time with this news right now?
Well, I'm having a hard time too. I mean, it's normal. Like I said, I think anybody who's worked with me or knows me, it's not who I am. And let me just say this, whatever Dearica deemed as painful or whatever, I'm not validating her feelings. And I'm sorry that they were hurt. My job is to have tough conversations. But I still have to do a job, and I have to do a job. My job is to make the Aces better every year. And sometimes that's a hard process. So as much as I could sit there and say, like, that's not how I deemed the conversation going, she deemed it another way. And for that, I do feel bad, because I'm not the person, I don't feel good in inflicting pain or stress on anybody. Never, like, it's just not in me. It's not my heart.
Now, another follow-up question, and Hammon shows good discipline for not saying what she thinks. Take a look.
And I guess finally, in your opinion, how should the league support mothers and pregnant people? And is there a way you think going forward and then the new CBA and the league that could be improved for all parties?
I think there definitely has to be some changes, some structure put in place. Because right now that it's very gray. The law, what was it called? An article, whatever, that they have, the rule that they have regarding pregnant players and how that looks within an organization. And I think for us as an organization, this decision had everything to do with freeing up money to sign free agents. That's all this was. Pregnant or not pregnant, this trade had to happen for the Las Vegas Aces to get better.
Hammon gives a veiled mention of the maternity leave policy, saying it needs it needs to be looked at and clarified. What is she alluding to? Well, I think she knows Hamby gave birth on the 15th of March, 2023. So if you do the math, 40 weeks, then she was pregnant when she signed the contract extension. So she was pregnant when they announced that she had signed the contract extension, which was on 29th, 2022, when it was announced that she had signed the contract extension. So the gray area is if she wouldn't have signed that extension and became pregnant in the offseason, or would have become aware of being pregnant in the offseason, no team would have signed her, and she wouldn't have gotten signed and no maternity leave. And hence why players want to make sure that they're under contract when they get pregnant. You don't want to be an unsigned player and be pregnant. It's almost like if you have an injury, like prior to the draft, if you have a knee injury or something like that, you're not showing the teams, you're hiding your injuries. You want to get that contract, and then you show up to camp and aren't able to play. It's like, oh, I didn't know this. I had this knee issue that needs to be fixed. But Hammon is clever enough not to go down this rabbit hole and get herself in trouble. So she just sticks to the mantra of, hey, it was just business and the trade only happened to make the Aces better, and that's what my job is to do. Now, this is the last question that we will look at, and it's the second to last question in the press conference, and Hammon nails the dismount, saying she's been criticized before for making tough decisions, and she's just going to rise above it. She alludes to, when she made the Olympic decision to play for Russia, and then she finishes off to humanize herself and talk about how, she's somebody's daughter, she's a sister and all this. And it's just a brilliant finish.
And obviously not covering the league, how much sort of a controversial storyline or storylines things have elevated. But obviously in the NBA, we hear different things all the time, and you spent time there. Your experiences in the NBA and seeing ongoing things, and even having Pop as a mentor, has that sort of helped this situation for you getting through it? Have you reached back to those experiences? And I'm just curious if maybe you had some conversations with Pop along the way, just to sort of vent and get something back from your mentor.
I haven't spoke with Pop. I did text him congratulations on getting the number one pick the other night. Super happy for them and their organization. But I've been through some stuff like this before. I mean, I go back specifically, to the Olympics, where people get on and say nasty things, things that are untrue. And at the end of the day, you always have to ask yourself, is what they're saying true? And if it is, you need to do some self-reflection. But if it isn't, I'm of the mindset of when someone hands you a pile of crap, you just drop it and keep it moving. Because the more you play with it in your head or talk about it, the more you get on you. And so I'm not interested in getting into the minutia or the weeds on all of this. I've been through it. It probably most importantly, my family's been through it. And that's the hardest piece for me, is obviously the people closest to me feel it. I'm someone's daughter too, a sister, friend. So people that really love and care about you feel that. And that to me is probably the crappier part of the whole scenario.
Brilliant performance, standing ovation. In short, we're moving forward. I did nothing wrong. If you see text messages come out in the future, they are fake. Hamby's upset because we traded her to get Candace Parker and Clark to get better. I feel bad for her as she was hurt by the business of basketball. Okay, those are my thoughts. Anyway, I don't know if you've made it to the end. If you had, hey, give this thing a like, please. All right, if you've made it this long in this video, give this video a like. Comments below. Thanks a lot for watching. Leave your comments and poison. I imagine there'll be a lot of poison, but leave them below. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good night.